Hi, this is Chris from Canopy and Stars, and welcome to A Life More Wild. In this episode, we're talking art and inspiration in nature. Later on, we'll be hearing from a man who runs artist retreats, galleries, and community groups on his land in Devon, and who is also sort of my boss. But first, we're in Scotland for a walk with Gemma Cairney, whose voice and incredible laugh you might recognise from Six Music, Radio 1, and a ton of other things.
Okay, imagine this, guys, listening. A wood, birds, you open up a gate, and then you walk kind of into a cave.
Gemma and her partner Cameron moved to Edinburgh a couple of years ago, and she is now, check this out for a job title, Thinker in Residence at Jupiter Artland, which is an enormous outdoor sculpture park full of weird structures and figures scattered through the woods of a country estate just west of the city.
Which way should we go, Cam?
Follow the sunshine?
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I met Cameron up a mountain, I'm just always trusting him there. He's like some sort of mountaineer in my mind.
We join her on a very windy day to talk putting down new roots, crystal caves, and her love of the outdoors.
Here we are in one of the weirdest, most wonderful parts of our Scottish life. I can't believe that we get to spend time at Jupiter Artland.
Yeah, I can't either. You got your own little bothy here that you're using.
It's too good to be true because this does feel like an Alice in Wonderland type of place.
I guess we should start from the beginning. What would you even call Jupiter? It's a big arts gallery, interactive.
Yeah, I guess like the closest example would be an art park, which there's sculpture, there's an experience, there's art education, there's very strange elements in terms of design. So even the hills are architected to bend your mind. There's an amethyst cave. It's really bananas, but so amazing. I mean, I've already had quite an unusual adult life with my job, working in radio and TV and literature and all the madcap, ridiculous, pretentious stuff that I do. But I wouldn't have expected to find Jupiter Artland. I'd never heard of it until I moved to Scotland. And I wouldn't have expected to end up writing books and being able to be a thinker in residence. What even is a thinker in residence? A thinker in residence at Jupiter Artland. So I'm here and I have a residency, so I can come to Jupiter whenever I want. I have keys and I have my own little office, essentially, a little warm spot. So even on a cold day, I can utilise the resources. There's some excellent books in the mini library here, and I am writing my book. But I also am integrated into the planning of events here. And I see Jupiter Artland as a space of wizardry, and the people that run it are pretty mystic. So I really like that. I'm really happy with it. Did you think that when we met in Malawi in 2018, that we would end up not only living together, but living together in Scotland and regularly hanging out at an art park?
Yes. I did.
I certainly didn't. Oh, we're at the mounds. So to describe these, the mounds are what you come across when you first come in to Jupiter, just to really set the tone. There's a series of ponds, really strangely shaped and well designed. This is where you start to wonder whether you're on the actual planet. And I love that Jupiter has this metaphoric frequency that you might not be actually on Earth, but on Jupiter. Astrologically as well, I think Jupiter represents a lot of very beautiful things, from femininity to creativity. So we live in the centre of Edinburgh, and you can drive out and not only be in wilderness when you live in Scotland, but you can find somewhere as eccentric, I guess, as this place. And it's divided up into different sections. Right now, we're in the learning area. So sometimes when I'm working in my office stroke library stroke bothy, call it whatever you want, my little safe space, I see really excitable children, little people, hopefully the leaders of our future, running around here, learning in the outdoors. And I really love the energy from mini people immersing themselves in the outdoors and being guided by real troubadours of an alternative education and how important art is. I am going to be, at the time of recording, 37 in less than a week. I started my job on radio when I was 23. So I've been doing this for a long time. I know I still dress like a child. I'm actually a professional broadcaster these days, and what's happened is that it's evolved, it's changed, I've learned, I've grown, and one of the things that I probably have worked out, at least, I love nature, and I love to be outdoors, and I'd already moved out of the city of London quite a long time ago. I moved to Margate on the southeast coast, and then I was swimming in the sea regularly. I've got to say, our move to Scotland was led by different feelings and thoughts and like this kind of want for new beginnings, and we've both got Scottish heritage as well, which is really nice. So kind of if you need to think about roots, like we can. I mean, I have a rampant imagination to the exhaustion of myself and most people that know me. So to find a way to live in amongst nature where your imagination is allowed to roam free has been really helpful for me.
It seems like the kind of swimming in Margate, that was your introduction to nature, and it's hard to find stuff like that living in London, which you were doing before moving to Margate.
Yeah, I definitely was much more inspired by an urban scape for a long time. In my 20s, my career started taking off. I was working in amongst pop culture. I was doing a lot of breakfast radio shifts. I've done so many different types of radio, but working for Radio 1, the biggest youth station in the country, in so many ways it was quote unquote successful and exciting, but it was very, very, very busy. And if I'm completely honest, it's always interesting what language people use, but I did reach a type of burnout. And I think having the sea close when I lived in Margate, and it was literally outside my bedroom window and my lounge window, I could see the Walpole Bay tidal pool, so I didn't even have to check the tidal times online or anything. I could just see the tide. It put a lot of things into context. It's all that poetic stuff that people talk about. When you see a massive blue sea every day, it makes you feel a bit smaller, but in a good way. Big nature, I guess, but for me it's blue. For you it's mountains, I think.
I think it's two sides of the same coin. It's that great expanse, I think, which is something that kind of opens up your horizon.
I think my relationship with the sea changed my life for the better and invited me to what nature can really, really do for the soul. And then now it's sort of changed a little bit. Now that I'm in Edinburgh, now that I'm in Scotland, I can get the same feelings about Arthur's Seat that I know really well. I have a strange relationship with Arthur because I broke my leg up Arthur's Seat 3 days into living in Scotland. But that's a whole other podcast. So this is the Weeping Girls. Well, these are the Weeping Girls. So they are a series of sculpture that are very evocative, quite haunting, and they are of 3 girls, essentially, children, in Victorian smocks, it looks like, with their hair cascading around their face so you can't see their faces. And they're crying. It's really sad.
4 girls.
Is there?
We got one hiding over here.
I mean,
You
they're
got another one.
spooky, aren't they?
Uh-oh. 5.
And they're using the trees to lean against. I've never seen these, you know.
Have you never seen
No.
the Weeping Girls?
And everybody talks about them because they really affect people, but I actually have purposefully not tried to make it out to them because they upset me. I'm pretty sensitive, and why are these girls crying? They don't look like they're having happy tears, do they? I wish we could find the Amethyst Cave. How close are we? Do you know?
I believe it's that way.
Is it? Let's head towards the Amethyst Cave because that's my favourite. I always describe places in rhythms because I feel for me it makes me understand like what I might feel or how I might go about things in different places.
And what was London's rhythm?
Oh, we can hear it. You can hear it in grime music.
And what about Edinburgh?
What would be Edinburgh's rhythm? It's quite refined, as we always say. We all giggle quite a lot because we live in a student area of Edinburgh, but we feel like the naughty ones. Everybody's holding a classical instrument case and clutching a plant lovingly, and I love that.
Oh, it's incredible. I'll be walking down the street and there'll be a group of university students in front of me, and I'll just kind of overhear conversations, and they're talking about foreign policy.
Well, neither of us went to university either, so again, it's quite amazing being in a university city.
We're going back to school. I think this is the way
Do you
to be.
reckon?
I think so.
I'm impressed if you know. Oh. Yes.
I believe these are it, guys.
Okay, imagine this, guys, listening. A wood, birds, you open up a gate, and then you walk kind of into a cave. There's a very thin pathway, and as you go down the steps, you're going deeper underground, knowing that when you get to the bottom, you will be immersed, like the never-ending story, into an amethyst cave.
So what are the special properties of amethyst?
The ancient Greeks used amethyst. I'm sure a lot of different ancient cultures would have come across the properties of amethyst, partly because it's so beautiful. It's purple, mauves, sparkly, iridescent, mystic deliciousness. Apparently, it's a centering crystal, so it will keep you grounded.
I do feel grounded here in this cave. Is this your favorite part of the whole Jupiter Artland?
Don't you feel like the walls resonate, like a nice feeling? I mean, I would happily sit and write my book from in here.
Yeah.
It's really cooling as well, isn't it? There's a beautiful American poet called Mary Oliver, and she writes a lot about like the healing powers of nature and the outdoors for your mind and body. But there is something about that practice within nature, whether it's a swim, whether it's like potting in your garden. It's like when I see the little kids when they come here to, you know, get involved in workshops and learn, and they're coming back with bunches of leaves, holding them in their hands, this kind of tactile nature that we can have when we're like gentle but loving within nature. It changes the way you breathe, it changes how you think creatively, it changes lives, it definitely does. And again, you have really taught me that, Cameron, because you are naturally somebody that is outdoorsy.
I talk to everybody about how much I love the way that Edinburgh is kind of integrated nature within a city, and I keep talking about how like that's hard to come by.
Yeah, I'm increasingly passionate about it the older I get. Not just for myself enhancement. I think it's fundamental that we experience nature, and I really think that we all deserve a chance to roll around in the grass. we do. And hug a tree, 'cause they're so fun.
Do we head on back?
Get back to the real world. It's been a lovely morning.
Lovely. It's so nice to walk around here.
That was the irrepressible Gemma Cairney, residing thoughtfully in the huge space at Jupiter Artland. On a slightly smaller scale, Tom Dixon, who actually co-founded Canopy and Stars back in 2010, is doing something similar with the land he now lives on in Devon, inviting community groups and artists to come and be inspired by the outdoors. It's just a part of what he feels is a responsibility that all businesses have to give back to nature and society where they can. First of all, tell us where you are, set the scene, take us to Devon.
Okay. Well, so where we are is right up on the moor, and today is a typical moor day, I would say. Foggy, misty, pretty much the weather that we get for sort of 5 months of the year. I shouldn't really be saying that because we try to get people to come down here, but no, it's got that kind of slightly mystical kind of feel to it. Hounds of the Baskervilles type day today, wet and slightly misty.
How long have you been down there now?
We moved down here just the end of 2019, so September 2019, end of September 2019, and we moved from Bristol. And for us, it was about, I guess, sort of trying to live a life more wild. Spent a lot of time helping other people to do that, and always felt really inspired by the owners and seeing the kind of lives that they lived. And obviously, as a business, that's what we're all about. So for me, it was, and us as a family, it was about trying to sort of move towards a more sort of life connected to nature and living in the countryside. And yeah, that was the big driver of the move.
So when you say us as a business, obviously you founded Canopy and Stars way back, what, 10, 12 years ago now? So how did that come about?
I'd reached the point where I was looking to change and do something that was more aligned with my passions and interests. And I became aware of Saw Days, and it's a company that I'd always admired, and obviously with a focus on ethical business and travel. And that's something that I'm really love and always been passionate about. So I approached Alistair Sawday, founder of Saw Days, and the idea really grew from a little acorn of an idea of a treehouse company. And from that point onwards, we developed the business as now we know as Canopy and Stars.
I mean, it's quite a popular idea now, but back then, did people get it? Was everyone jumping on board, or was there a bit of confusion?
Yeah, I guess there was an element more. You're right. It's a really well understood concept now, glamping. And in fact, when we started, we didn't even really mention the word glamping anywhere on the website. We were slightly sort of sniffy about it. We were always sort of more, I guess, about holidays in nature. But I had this little notebook that I'd created, which was a leather-bound mood board of everything that I felt we wanted Canopy and Stars to be. So it was much more than just the structures, but it was this whole sort of life around it. And that really helped to sort of explain the concept, I suppose, to people that perhaps weren't fully on board with it. I do remember someone sort of saying once to me about the book that I'd really sort of managed to get in his head around what he was dreaming of. And it kind of just brought it to life. And I guess because it was so broad in all these different sort of photographic references and sketches, that's really where we wanted to be. We didn't want to be too defined by one particular type of space or another. It was really letting the community grow the collection, if you like.
Did you not go down to see someone who was going to build a tree house and didn't have any trees?
Yeah. I mean, back then that was okay because we didn't have guests and owners and things like that to deal with. So it was kind of like, okay.
How did Canopy and Stars then take shape in the early days?
Well, Chris, as you know, those early days, when it was just the two of us for some time. And I think that for me, it was time, chatting together, sort of thinking about where the business could go. I also remember our first, I think it might have been your first day at work, or certainly it was in the first couple of weeks, when we went out on a road trip in the trusty gas car, that was just the bane of my life for inspection trips. And it broke down, somewhere in Wiltshire, I think. And that was, this is the way it goes. Yeah. This is our company car.
I was so pleased because that was first day on the job and we happened to drive through essentially the town I went to school. and loads of places I knew, so I could navigate and look really useful. I was very pleased about that for day one on the job.
Yeah. And then we got a lift back in a sort of, I guess, a recovery vehicle at sort of 2:00 in the morning or something. I don't know why it took so long. But yeah, those early days, just being out on the road, visiting people, meeting owners. Well, I don't think any of us thought we would get many bookings, but actually it proved to be quite a success, and it's grown from there. And what an adventure.
Was this a path you were always on, to having your own place and living the way you do now?
I think so. I think it's one of those things where if you want to look at the present or the future, you kind of look back at your past and sort of join the gaps, you know, and the steps that you take in life. And my childhood was spent on a small holding in North Devon, and a lot of that time was outdoors, building dens and tree houses and things like that. And we holidayed in yurts and gypsy caravans before I was, you know, aware of this opportunity that became Canopy and Stars. But I think there was always this part of me that felt that to sort of complete my I guess myself and my, you know, what we wanted as a family, that actually running a space was really important, and so it's always been an ambition, and I feel very grateful and lucky to now be doing that.
Have you got a particular guest that stands out?
A lot of proposals and honeymoons. I think we've had, so just in the last week, we had one, which was really wonderful. She was asking her boyfriend, and he said yes. And they had all these amazing things mapped out to do, and they had beautiful weather, and that was really exciting for them. But we've had, I reckon, in the 2 years, we must have had at least 4 proposals. That's pretty special that someone
that must be nice to sort of be involved in that story in some way.
Yeah. And then quite a few honeymoons as well. There's a lot of special occasions, and it's quite a thing that they're trusting you in. There's high expectations with holidays, so we really sort of try to pull out all the stops. I think we both naturally, this is myself and Vashti, my partner, we both enjoy hosting, and we like creating these nice experiences for people, so we do put a lot of effort into that.
But you hope that they do take it with them in some way. So it's not just the birthday or the proposal, it's something that resonates in the rest of their lives. And they think, actually, I could live a bit more outdoors.
Yeah, I think we do. And I hope that is the case. I mean, there's a handful of guests that we sort of stayed in touch with, but you can just see that when they arrive, sometimes they've had a long drive and they can be a little bit tense. And then when you see them when they leave, they're just so much more relaxed. Yeah, and we get all of these comments in the guest book. We have a sort of more of a sketchbook, and it's some really amazing artists, but also lovely comments about connecting again with each other. And one of the things that we've done is we could have put Wi-Fi into the space, well, the piggery space that we have, but we chose not to, and people really appreciate that. And this is the other thing, there's no mobile signal where we are. So you really are, it's a forced detox, and people really love that. You know, if they want to get 4G, then they've got to walk to get it. You know, they're right up the top of the hill. But where we are, there is no mobile. And 5G, I mean, no way. That doesn't exist on Dartmoor.
I know it's something that Canopy and Stars is really thinking about, is the sort of broader access to nature. So who have you hosted? Who have you had come to visit? I know you've done quite a lot.
Yeah, well, we've had in the first couple of years. So this was really during lockdown and around lockdowns. We the first year we ran a camp for some parents and families from our old school in inner city Bristol, which was brilliant. And then last year we worked with Black to Nature, Maya Rose Craig's Bird Girls organisation. And that was, again, families, mainly from Bristol, people with barriers of, you know, whether they're social, economic or cultural barriers to nature. So we did that. And now where we're really at is trying to create more of a long-term partnership with an organisation in Devon where we can really sort of link in with them and create something that can really build. So tomorrow we're meeting with a refugee charity based in Exeter and Plymouth to see how we can link in with them.
What's the plan for that?
Well, the plan for that is to, so we've got accommodation here and we can run residential camps and things. But what we'd love to do is to have something that feels a bit more part of the pattern of their lives. They have a women's group that meets once a month, has a community garden project in Exeter as well, which they do more often than that. So maybe weekly. So we're developing a permaculture garden here. where we want to specialize in growing medicinal herbs and leaves, salad leaves and things like that. So as well as flowers. So it feels like we'd love to see a way of developing that permaculture where the group can really sort of take ownership of it. It's not really us driving it forward. They will make the decisions on what they want to do.
That's kind of the next step, isn't it? To getting that taste, the bit of access, is then that sense of ownership. If you've grown something, you planted something, you can really bind yourself to nature and feel more value from it there, I think.
I completely agree. And I think it gives any kind of activity here that we might do so much more purpose. It has a meaning beyond just a sort of a day trip. There's an end product of value. And we're not sort of talking commercial value, but something they can take home and they can eat and they can use, and we can learn from each other as well. So it's back to that sort of having the space, not necessarily having all the ideas, definitely not having all the answers, but wanting to work with people where we can do some interesting things that benefits them, well, benefits all of us really. So our kids will learn from being around them. You know, we hope to sort of tie that in with cooking as well, and cooking being this thing that brings communities together. So hopefully we can cook some interesting meals with the produce of the garden.
When you get those groups, when you get those inner city kids, especially, I imagine, how do they respond to that change of environment? It must be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it's easy to forget. I mean, even where we are in our local towns to us, Newton Abbot, it's right on the edge of the moor, effectively. But there's a bunch of kids there that just never even been to the moor. So for kids that are coming from Bristol, that's even more pronounced. There is this sort of nature poverty, and even though there are little pockets of green in the city, it's very, very different to having acres to run around in, and that sort of sense of space and the peace and calm of being in the countryside compared to the city. So it can be quite transformational, and it takes them a little while to adjust. But once they're in the flow, they just, it's so amazing to see them just running wild, and their parents seeing that their kids are just able to just be themselves and let loose, and especially over the last couple of years, the stress and pressures that everyone's been under. So yeah, it feels really wonderful to be able to provide that.
Yeah, it must be an incredible feeling to see that you can have that effect on people by something so simple as just letting them be in that space.
Yeah, hopefully it sort of tunes them in, and their family, their parents, to the value of that of time in nature, and it is possible to try and build that more into your life in the city. A lot of this stuff is free. It's harder to access in the city, but it's free, and it's really good for them and good for their kids, and just makes them happier and healthier, really. Decent night skies must be quite a thing for city people. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've only ever grown up in the city, even when you go on holiday to, lots of places don't have that sort of, this is a dark sky reserve. So you really, on a clear night, it's unbelievable. It's quite mesmerizing. And I think that's one of those sort of, wow, this is the universe that we're in. We're this small sort of part of something much bigger. And, that's, I guess, nature. So that's very grounding. And that's what I love about a stroll up the hill when you get those sort of big views. It's like when you're at the sea, and you're just looking at that horizon, you feel tiny. And I think that's really, it's something that I yearn for. And that's what I love about being by the coast. We're not by the coast, but we do have that kind of similar feel with those big, big views where you just feel the sort of power and the scale of nature, and that we're sort of part of it.
Well, that was plenty of food for thought from both Tom and Gemma on how nature can play a role in our creativity and communities, as well as our mental and physical health. If you're in need of a little inspiration, I thoroughly recommend heading to Jupiter Artland or down to South Camban to let your mind run free for a bit. You could even take a walk in the park, dare I say it, without a podcast to listen to, and help clear your mind for new thoughts. Remember to like, review and follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you outside again soon.